For the last 30 years, there was a promise that a cure is coming. You might have seen a headline about a breakthrough therapy or a commercial with hopeful faces. Maybe a parent's neurologist mentioned it at the end of an appointment. It might have almost felt like reassurance. It always seemed like a cure was coming. At the end of a news broadcast, they might have said, "Be patient, be hopeful, wait for the science to catch up, maybe 5 to 10 years." I know why they made those promises, and I held on to hope just like you. But I'm here to tell you there won't be a cure for Alzheimer's disease. That might sound discouraging, but let me tell you what that does mean. We are learning more about Alzheimer's disease every day, and that means we know more about how to prevent Alzheimer's. Here's what's changed. We now have a fuller picture of what Alzheimer's actually is. We unfortunately spent too much time and research on therapies that were never going to happen. The science has now moved. Quietly, rigorously, just as science always does. The research results came and went without huge press releases. There weren't huge blockbuster drugs. But where it has moved is actually good news if you understand what the science now says and what it means for your parents and for you right now. Let me show you why. For the last century, neuroscience has operated with a metaphor that made sense when it was adopted. We have all heard the metaphor that the brain is a computer. With hardware, software, files, and memory storage, it was a useful framework for thinking about information processing. If a computer breaks, you find the damaged part, you replace it, patch the software, and the machine returns to how it was before. It's cured. This metaphor helped us ask good questions for a long time, but it led us ultimately into a dead end because your brain is nothing like a computer. Your memories are not files saved on a hard drive. They are the physical structure of your brain. Specific patterns of connections between specific neurons, billions of microscopic touch points, each one carrying a piece of who your parent is. The way they recognize your face, their sense of humor, the memory of the day you were born, they are not data files. They are woven into the actual anatomy of living cells. When Alzheimer's damages the brain, it is not corrupting a file. It is damaging the structure itself, cell by cell, long before anyone can see the damage from the outside. By the time your parent sits in a neurologist's office, repeating questions or struggling to find a word, millions of these microscopic bridges have already vanished. The neurons themselves has already withered and died. Asking a medication to cure advanced Alzheimer's is like spraying a fertilizer on a dead plant and expecting to spontaneously grow itself into a living plant. You cannot medicate what has already been lost. You have to work with what is left. When your parent's neurologist describes the latest amyloid-clearing drug, you should ask one question. What does this medication do for my parents' daily function? Not their scans, not their biomarkers, their daily function. Can they still hold a conversation? Can they still recognize me? Can they still enjoy their meals? That is the question. And the honest answer right now, with the drugs we currently have, is the effect on daily function is modest, and the risks are real. Understanding the modest benefits versus the very real possibility of brain swelling and bleeding is exactly the kind of information your parent needs, not marketing or false hope. Here's what's happening right now in neuroscience that most families don't know about. The field is undergoing a quiet revolution, and it doesn't look like a breakthrough drug. It looks like a change in how the most rigorous researchers are thinking about the problem entirely. The leading voices in Alzheimer's research are actively moving away from the language of a cure, not in defeat, but in maturity. Oncology went through the same exact shift 30 years ago. We used to say cure cancer. Today, oncologists know that cancer is hundreds of distinct diseases, each requiring a personalized, targeted combination of therapies tailored to the individual's biology, genetics, and stage of disease. No single drug cures cancer, but people are living longer, better lives with cancer than at any point in history. Because the field stopped looking for one answer and started building precise, individualized treatments. Alzheimer's is heading in the same direction, and for the same reasons. Imagine a 65-year-old woman. Her memory is completely intact. She has no symptoms, but a blood biomarker test, a simple blood draw, shows the early molecular signatures of Alzheimer's pathology beginning to accumulate. The old approach, your memory is fine. Come back in a year, The new approach, she doesn't get one medication. She gets a personalized combination designed for her specific biology at that specific moment. One agent might target the tau tangle pathway, an anti-inflammatory protocol to calm the immune system, a metabolic support intervention to improve how her neurons process energy, tight cardiovascular management because her blood vessels are her brain's lifeline, and structured lifestyle interventions like sleep optimization, cardiovascular exercise, cognitive engagement, strength exercise. Not a cure, a sophisticated, multi-targeted system to keep the dominoes from falling while the architecture is still standing. As a care partner, you know there isn't a cure, but understanding latest science can help us protect what we still have. You have no longer waiting for a miracle cure that will never come. You are managing a complex system, and that puts you in the game in a way that passive hope never could. You have a specific evidence-based actions you can take right now. You have influence over multiple variables simultaneously, and that's your strategy. Exercise is not optional maintenance for an aging body or an aging brain. It is the single most powerful neuroprotective intervention currently available to any human being. More powerful than any drug in clinical trials right now. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain. It stimulates the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which functions essentially as fertilizer for neurons, supporting the growth and maintenance of the very connections Alzheimer's is trying to destroy. It maintains blood sugar, blood pressure, and inflammation, 3 of the 4 systems we just identified as affected in Alzheimer's. Next time your dog demands a walk, and that nose on your elbow and those eyes that will not look away, he is prescribing the most evidence-based neuroprotective intervention on the planet. He does not know the science. He intuitively knows that movement is life, and the science agrees with him. Here is what I want you to understand. The real breakthrough in Alzheimer's science is not a drug. It is the ability to see the disease coming. Alzheimer's does not begin when your parents forget your name. It begins 15 to 20 years before the first symptoms appear. It is a silent, decades-long process unfolding in a brain that still feels entirely normal to the person living in it. For most of medical history, we could not see it coming. We could only respond to the wreckage. For the first time, we can now see the smoke before the fire. With modern blood biomarker tests, not brain imaging, not PET scans, just a standard blood draw, we can now detect the molecular signatures of early Alzheimer's pathology. In a 50-year-old with completely intact memory, we can see the plaques beginning to accumulate. We can see the neuroinflammation markers rising. We can see the vascular changes beginning. This completely redefines what winning against the disease looks like. We are no longer trying to resurrect a dead plant. We are trying to preserve what we still have left. If we can screen people in their 50s and 60s before symptoms appear, we can intervene when the brain is still fully intact. We can still introduce multi-targeted combinations and targeted lifestyle modifications while the architecture is still standing, while the neurons are still alive, while the connections are still there to protect. And here's the real prize that I can state in the plainest of languages. If we can just delay the onset of cognitive symptoms by just 5 to 10 years, we effectively have neutralized a public health crisis. A person whose biology would have led to significant memory loss at 75 becomes a person who reaches 85 or 90 with their memories intact. It is not a cure, but it is something arguably better. It is a full life with your memories, with your name, with your face still recognized by the people you love. Looking back on the promise of a single molecular cure, we now know that promise isn't going to happen. Not because the scientists failed, but because the question was wrong from the beginning. I'm not saying that there's no hope. I'm not saying that research doesn't matter. I'm not saying that your parent's situation is inevitable. I am saying the opposite. By trading the illusion of a single magic drug for the reality of early detection and multi-targeted interventions, we can achieve something the cure could never have delivered. We can transform Alzheimer's from a terrifying inevitability into a condition that can be seen coming, slowed down in its tracks, and in some cases, prevented from happening at all. The cure we were promised was always the wrong goal. We are trying to rebuild the city after the demolition was already done. What the science is now building, quietly, rigorously, without the fanfare of a new drug, is a way to see the demolition crew arriving 15 years in advance and stop them at the gate. Your job as a care partner is not to wait for a cure. Your job is to be the person in the room who refuses to accept that everything happening to your parent's brain is inevitable, because most of it isn't. Here is what to do. 1. Ask about the biomarker test. If your parents is in their 60s with a family history of Alzheimer's, a blood biomarker test is now available and increasingly covered by insurance. The conversation with your physician starts with, "Can we check the early Alzheimer's biomarkers? I want to know where we are while we still have options." 2. Understand the modifiable risk factors: blood sugar, blood pressure, sleep quality, hearing loss, physical activity, social engagement. These are not wellness suggestions. They are documented, peer-reviewed necessary interventions that influence whether and when Alzheimer's pathology becomes Alzheimer's disease. 3. Protect the cardiovascular system. Heart health is brain health. The same vascular damage that causes heart disease causes the vascular damage of neurons we discussed earlier. Your parents' cardiologist and the neurologist are working on the same problem whether they know it or not. 4. Move. Every day. Your dog is right about this. The evidence for cardiovascular exercise as a neuroprotective intervention is more robust than the evidence for any drug currently approved for Alzheimer's. This is not optional. It is the intervention. And 5, stay in the room. As the science evolves, and is evolving faster than any point in history, you need to be the informed presence in every clinical intervention. The care partner who knows these questions is the person who changes the outcome. The cure we were promised may never come. But what is coming, what the science is building right now, is the ability to outrun this disease while your parent's brain is still intact enough to benefit. That is not a consolation prize. That is the whole game, and you are in it. That is what I want you to carry when you leave this video. Not despair that a cure isn't coming, not passive hope that it will. The knowledge that you have agency, that early detection changes everything. The variables that matter are the ones that you can influence right now in your parents' daily life starting today. This is real hope, and it builds on something more durable than a promise. It is built on evidence. If this video helps you think about Alzheimer's differently, I invite you to download the MyRxPro Caregivers Toolkit. We bring you the rigorous science translated into what you can actually use. Not headlines, not hype, the evidence, and what to do with it. I'm David, founder of MyRxPro. We're here to help one pill at a time. Thanks for watching.